Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show, all across the United States and Canada, on over 270 affiliates, and wherever you may be watching, courtesy of YouTube, where we put up the show every day. We appreciate you being here. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Sam Yarnell will be here. We'll get into the Aaron Judge conversation. Yesterday he spoke out and said, I'm coming back this season. Yankee brass seems a little less certain. There is NFL talk to get to. Who needs the preseason the most? Who doesn't need it the most? Sam Yarnell and I will try to have a conversation on that. There is also some other news from the NFL in terms of players re-signing with their teams and a whole bunch of that stuff. Aaron Donald is in the news, which we'll actually get to a little bit here in the big story. There is that, odds and ends to talk about, and this continuing evolving conversation around women's sports and transgender athletes being involved in women's sports, which they're not at the professional level, although you would think they were, based on the way some of the conversation has taken place in recent weeks and months. But some interesting developments and advancements in how this is being discussed that I want to get to coming up a little later on in the show. You've heard a lot about Sophie Cunningham. Well, now other professional athletes are starting to speak out on the topic, and one in particular got my attention. We'll get to that a little later on in the show. But we start things out as we always do on this Thursday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story is presented by the Daily Wrap, our Monday through Friday newsletter, courtesy of Substack. It's available there every day. Sometimes even on the weekends, we got some stuff to put up there. All you got to do is scan the QR code right there. It's easy. You got your phone in your hand. If I don't know where my phone is for 5 minutes, I lose my mind. All you got to do is use your phone, scan the QR code on the screen. You'll get access to the Daily Wrap. It's free to subscribe. We put up notes from the show every day, a great newsletter, sometimes columns, sometimes videos. It's all there on Substack. The Daily Wrap. Subscribe today. Is there any more pressure on a team in the history of the NFL? That's being hyperbolic. Than there is on the Los Angeles Rams to win a Super Bowl this year? Well, the answer is no. There have been teams that have had a lot more pressure on them based on the preseason odds. Right now, the Rams are plus 550 to win the Super Bowl. The next best odds are the team that actually won the Super Bowl last year, interestingly enough, in the Seattle Seahawks, who are at 11-1, along with the Bills, who are at 11-1. Then there's the Ravens at 12-1, and you can go on and down the list. But the pressure is on the Rams. Why? They made the most hay in this offseason. They completely reshaped their cornerback room when it comes to bringing in Jalen Watson and trading for Trent McDuffie. They add Myles Garrett via trade. They say, we don't care about draft picks. We don't care about the future. The future is now. They go and get Myles Garrett. They retain a lot of the guys they have. And now there's talk about Aaron Donald rejoining the team after being retired for a year. So there's a lot going on here with this team that puts them in the spotlight and puts them as the team to beat this season, considering they narrowly lost in the NFC Championship game last year to the eventual champion in the Seahawks. So there's a lot of pressure on this team. But it's not the most pressure that a team has ever faced based on the preseason odds. Look here. Biggest preseason Super Bowl favorites over the last 20 years in the NFL. And a lot of them are the Patriots. You know what all 10 of these have in common? And look at all the odds. They're all better odds, or shorter odds, than the Rams have to win the Super Bowl this year. What do they all have in common? None of them won the Super Bowl. 6 different times it was the Patriots. Twice it was the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. And twice the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they've all had good seasons. They've all made the playoffs with the exception of the 2008 Patriots. Oh, I think that was the year Matt Castle was the quarterback because Tom Brady got hurt, if I'm not mistaken. But if you're thinking that all of this hullabaloo around the Rams means that ultimately they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, you might want to think again. You might want to think about spreading your money around and putting it on a different team. I mean, and if I'm looking at different teams, and we could always get into this with Sam Yarnell, but if there's another team that I'm looking at, maybe Buffalo this year, maybe it's their year, maybe Baltimore, maybe Seattle again. They're running it back. Why not? But when you look at the odds for this year, thinking it's a fait accompli when it comes to this Rams team may not necessarily be the way to go. Matthew Stafford is a year older. Now you got Ty Simpson backing him up, who is the future of the franchise at that position. At least that's the way they viewed it when they drafted him. But the one equalizer in the NFL, and why all of this conversation about who winds up winning the Super Bowl this year and all of these fun conversations that we will have between now and week 1 of the NFL season is the great equalizer, and it's the great unknown. It's injuries. How many years have we talked about the Bengals being in the mix in the AFC, and then Joe Burrow goes down with an injury and the whole season blows up? Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. You lose one key player at the wrong position and everything changes. Everything gets blown up. Myles Garrett is obviously going to be a big addition for this team. We know what he does on the defensive end. We know the kind of disruption he creates. And then there's a different kind of disruption. The one that Puka Nacua created at different points of last season, vis-a-vis some of his actions. Now he went into rehab. We don't really know for what, but he was trying to sort of get his life together after a tumultuous 2025 season. What does he look like coming back? There are still big question marks that surround this team and how it all fits together. And here's the interesting thing, and there's no escaping this. This is one of the more unique situations because Sean McVay delivered a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford to this franchise. So there is obviously a great love and admiration for those guys. But at the same time, in a what have you done for me lately sort of league, there's going to be a lot of pressure on those guys to bring one last Super Bowl with this core group of guys together in 2026. And if they don't deliver that Super Bowl, even though they've delivered one before, how will they be viewed in the prism of history as far as that fan base is concerned? As strange of a fan base as it is. And that's the big story. We're coming back. We've got more to do on the show. More from the NFL. Sam Yarnell will be here. Who needs the preseason the most? Who needs it the least? We'll talk about it next. Welcome back to the show. This Thursday edition of Sports Wrap rolls on. I've had my say in the big story. Sam Yarnell gets his. So, Sam, the NFL preseason is here. The long wait has ended. What does the NFL give us to wet our whistle? Cardinals and Dolphins. Woo! Can we call it an early pick for top draft next year's draft? Can we do that? Maybe would that suffice? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. And by the time you see this, depending on where you're watching this, the game may have already taken place. Does it really matter? I mean, we'll have a little bit of a breakdown of it tomorrow in case there is anything to actually break down from preseason game number 1 in Canton for the Hall of Fame game. But I thought it would be fun today. We've been doing these little NFL topics on the show as we go through the training camp and now as we enter the preseason. To ask ourselves the question, and I was asking myself this question yesterday in the midst of a mental breakdown, and asking which team needs the NFL preseason the most and which team needs it the least. So I've thrown this question out to you. You've had all night to think about it and all morning to think about it. So now I ask you, Sam Yarnell, which NFL teams need the preseason the most?
The nature of the question is very funny, Jason. And I would just like to say the Hall of Fame game is so memorable to our good friend Jason Page. He didn't even remember who was playing in it. It's the Panthers, and the Cardinals, not the Dolphins. Okay. My goodness. I cannot wait to watch. Who is it? Carson Beck is on one side in this game, and Keaton Slovis is on the other side in this game. I'll be locked in. I'm going to bet the under. You bet. The Hall of Fame game is always hilarious. And yes, of course, I'm going to watch it because it's the first football we've had in, 6 months at this point. So it's going to be a horrible game. It's going to be awful. I'll bet the under, and I'll watch the game, and I'll enjoy it because it's football. And I say this every year. In the middle of June, we would always be happy with a stinker of a Browns-Panthers game right now. This is Not the me. NFL doing their version of reminding us of that. I'll be absolutely locked in. The nature of the question, which team needs the NFL preseason the most, is funny because over the course of, I mean, honestly, let's go back over the course of the last 7 years, right? Since they renegotiated the last CBA and shortened the preseason, everybody in football has told you that the preseason does not matter one iota. All they do every single year is across the board from team 1 to team 32 in the league. All they show you is that no one cares about the preseason. It is a waste of time and truly matters for 5 to 6 guys per roster on the most volatile rosters. On big time rosters like the returning Super Bowl champions, right? It's going to matter for 3 guys. So I always think the preseason is hilarious that we pretend it's, this big thing and cut days mean this. You know who's going to get cut? There might be 1 or 2 surprises per team across the league. That's a total of what? About 50 surprises on individual players who are scraping the bottom of the barrel for the last roster spot on the team. Listen, the preseason's great. It's fun. We'll get a couple of fun plays and a bunch of guys who, football degens like myself can't wait to watch in the CFL next season. But it doesn't matter what team needs it and what team doesn't need it, Jason, because the fact of the matter is every team has showed you they don't care about the preseason anymore.
We're 4 minutes into the segment, and you didn't answer the question. There is an answer to the question. The Cleveland Browns need it the most. They don't know who the hell their quarterback's going to be in 2026. Yes, They've got 17 quarterbacks on the roster again. One of them's Deshaun Watson, and they've got to figure out where the future. I mean, it feels like every year we could say this with the Browns. They are at a crossroads. This franchise has to figure out. It feels like every year they come to a crossroad, and every year they take the wrong route. Fork in the road, take it, as Yogi used to say. I'm trying to figure out. Look, you're gonna tell me it's Deshaun Watson? What, for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until they figure out, he can't play anymore, and then you're back to the bottom of the barrel and trying to figure out who the starting quarterback for that franchise is going to be. I think the Browns need this preseason to figure out this quarterback situation once and for all, Sam.
It's interesting. I think the Browns are actually better set up, at least to build for the future right now, than they've ever been in the recent history of their franchise. Maybe since they signed the Deshaun Watson contract, and here's why. They're gonna start Deshaun Watson. I would bet you dollars to donuts right now that Deshaun Watson is their week 1 starter for a plethora of reasons, headlined by the fact that the other day, who was one of the wide receivers, I think it was Jerry Jeudy, one of the wide receivers on the Browns roster, was on Instagram Live in the locker room. Someone asked him who the starting quarterback is going to be this year, and he held up a 4. That's Deshaun Watson's number. That's not Shedeur Sanders' number. It's going to be Deshaun Watson, and here's why the Browns are the best set up to build for the future that they've ever been. Jason, what do you and I talk about every single NFL season on this show? What happens to one franchise and it completely ruins their season? A quarterback injury, and there's no quarterback available for them to go out and get. Last year was the Cincinnati Bengals, who started Joe Burrow for more than half the season and Joe Flacco for more than half the season when Joe Burrow went down, and they still almost made the playoffs. What the Browns are set up to do is start Deshaun Watson, show the rest of the league somehow that he can still play football. This is the last year of that insane contract. If you eat the rest of that contract as the Browns, who no one has any iota of a hope for this entire season, if you eat the rest of that contract at the trade deadline and trade him somewhere where someone needs a quarterback because, Matthew Stafford just went down and Ty Simpson actually isn't the guy, that's going to set the Browns up for years to come in terms of draft capital. I actually think there's a way for the Browns to play this that they could build their franchise in a way that they've been trying to do for seemingly the last decade.
You could tell me all of that, and you know what my answer to it is? They're the Browns. They'll screw it up. Because they do every year. And you can laugh, but that's the truth. You can sit here and tell me they are the most set up, they're the best set up, and that's exactly why it will fail. Because they're the Cleveland Browns. Hello to our friends watching on Rock Sports and Entertainment. The Rams are the team that need it the least, by the way. If they didn't play a single snap in this preseason, I think the Rams would be set up for success. And in fact, they'd probably prefer to just forfeit every preseason game and just start with week 1.
There you go. That's it, right? Last year and this year. The team that wishes the preseason wasn't a thing the most, that's definitely the Rams. That's just because they have a bunch of old guys.
It's true. We'll get to Aaron Donald a little later in the show because he worked out for the team. Lots more to do on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. It has been a hot-button issue in sports over the last, well, really month, but in particular over the last several days, the topic of women in sports, transgender women in sports, this culture war and divide on the topic. And look, there's no escaping this. I've been stuck in the middle of it as far as the social media conversation on it. And we've discussed it on this show as needed. But there was an interesting development as it relates to the way this conversation is taking place, how it's impacting the WNBA, as Linda Cohn and I discussed on Sports Wrap on Wednesday's edition of the show. There's no getting around the fact that this is a major topic of conversation. Should it be? That's another topic unto itself. But it is a huge topic. But something interesting happened on Wednesday. A couple of athletes spoke out on this topic. And I want to compare and contrast the way two athletes in two completely different sports are discussing and getting into this topic of testing for female athletes to make them eligible for sports, as is going on right now with the WTA. They are installing a policy where you have to take this one-time genetic test, that proves you have the markers as a biological female. And then there is the way WNBA star Sophie Cunningham has chosen to address the topic of transgender athletes in sports. So I want to give you a couple of pieces of video here. This is Sophie Cunningham yesterday. Now, we already know everything she has said previously. It is clear to me somebody in the WNBA offices or somebody in PR for the Fever finally got through and said, okay, look, you have not handled this correctly. Whether we agree or disagree with her point, which is that transgender females should not be allowed to compete against biological females, and everything she's done surrounding that, vis-a-vis taking pictures with Riley Gaines, who is an unapologetic transphobe, or basically doubling down on her comments, but not really showing compassion or empathy for the trans community. Yeah, she said, I love everybody. But that's not addressing the people that your comments initially were geared towards, which are transgender people. So Sophie Cunningham comes out yesterday and basically holds an impromptu press conference in Indianapolis talking about how the focus needs to go back on the WNBA and the games on the court. Watch and listen.
I think that there's so much good going on in the WNBA. I think that basketball is being played at the highest level it's ever been. I think our team in specific, we are breaking history right now with the amount of points that we're scoring on back-to-back games. I think the Minnesota game, there's just so much distraction. I think the WNBA media, all we ever do is cover everything except basketball. And it's like, what are we doing? There's so much. Like, you can talk about other things. I think those are great stories. I think it shows fans, who people are outside of the court. But I also think we got to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think when it comes to the Minnesota game, I think there was so much distraction. But like the matchup between Miles and Kelsey was phenomenal. Our team, I mean, that game in particular was a great game. And so I think that there's a lot to be said, and I'm going to let people just do the speaking for themselves. But for me, I want to get back to basketball. It's always been about basketball. That interview happened in February when I was asked a question. And so for me, I just want to, make sure that it stays, the focus stays where it should, because people are playing at such a high level. We have probably like 3 MVPs that could be MVPs on our team specifically. And so that's why I want to do that. No, I was asked a question, and that's simply what it was. I just wasn't making a statement to make a statement. And so I was trying to clear the air, and I did that and back in February. And so it is what it is. And like I said, we're in the middle of the season. I'm going to keep it that. We talk about a bunch of distraction. Our team is good. My teammates are good. Our locker room is great. And so now we're just here about to prepare for Las Vegas, and that's where our mind is at.
Okay. We can sit here and get into her calling this a distraction. Oh, Minneapolis, there was a distraction. You're out there taking photos with Riley Gaines. I mean, just stop, okay? You're making yourself part of this story and the way it's being discussed. Take that, put it aside. Here's Coco Gauff talking about the very similar topic with this new testing that's come into tennis, this one-time genetic test, and how she views this entire story as a whole.
As far as that, I mean, I understand the reasoning behind it. I do think that this kind of conversation has created a lot of animosity towards the trans community, which I'm not really a big fan of, but I also understand the need to, it's a biological difference and the need to protect that and preserve that. So I think it's a conversation that is very nuanced. And it creates causes, or I need to have a nuanced answer. So, yes, I guess kind of agree with trying to protect the fairness in women's sports, but I also do not like the attack that it is creating people who don't really care but just want to use this as a reason to attack the trans community. So I'm not really a big fan of that either. So I don't really know how to answer really this question in a way that people aren't going to spin it. But as far as where I stand, I definitely support the trans community, but I also support the need of creating fairness in sport too.
That's nuance. That is compassion and empathy while saying, I understand why we're doing this testing and we need it. See, it's not, my father taught me this growing up, and it's so true. He used to say, Jason, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that is the perfect embodiment of it. Look at the way Sophie Cunningham has carried herself on this issue at 29 years old, by the way, versus Coco Gauff at 22, who had some and in there and everything. And she's answering this question, I think, probably for the first time in public this way. But how much better she handled it. Both wanting fairness in women's sports. Nobody is disputing that. But one showing empathy, one showing care, one being careful, and the other has just doubled down and recycled the same talking points while appearing with people like Dana White, calling him an amazing guy, and her friend after he's caught slapping around his wife. Really pro-women there, Sophie Cunningham. And hanging out with Riley Gaines, who hates the transgender community. There's no getting around it. One handled the question and the topic better than another. One is 22 and one is 29. We're coming back to talk about Aaron Judge next. Welcome back to the show. A couple of NFL notes. Commanders adding some receiving depth. We'll get to that, as well as Colts making an announcement on Thursday morning regarding one of their stars. And Aaron Donald, worst kept secret in the world. He's coming back. Sam Yarnell. Yankees lose last night. Dropped the rubber game of a 3-game set with the St. Louis Cardinals 3-1 as they continue to struggle to find offense. with the absence of Giancarlo Stanton, who is getting set to come back soon. Aaron Judge, who we'll get to in just a moment, and obviously Cody Bellinger, who is still out of the lineup. George Lombard continues to impress, though. George Lombard Jr., I should say, continues to impress. Boy, he made a play in the field early in this game last night. Ball that was absolutely destined to go up the middle at like 105 miles an hour that he snared out of the air and was able to make a great play. It might have been against Weatherholt, too, who hit it up the middle. But Cardinals beat the Yankees 3-1. But Yankee fans are certainly excited about Lombard Jr. And now the Yankees competing with the Red Sox for that top wild card spot. They are tied in the loss column. Red Sox with 2 less wins. But the big news out of Yankee land yesterday was that Aaron Judge says he will be back before the end of the year. However, Sam Yarnell, he's not setting a timetable. Now, I will say, hearing him speak out on it and knowing how deliberate and measured Aaron Judge is in everything he says, it has kind of changed my mind. Whereas 3 days ago, I don't think I was of the mindset that he was coming back this season. With him actually coming out and speaking it, I don't know if he's just trying to speak it into existence or not. I think he's coming back. I don't know when it's going to be, and I don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. He has started on-field activities and on-field working out again, but I think he's coming back now.
Okay, so the Yankees are a mess, and we have to talk about this because as much as Jason, you and I for 3 months of this baseball season came on this show and said, oh my gosh, what is going on with the Boston Red Sox? The Boston Red Sox fired their freaking manager. What are they going to... you couldn't see him in the rearview mirror that long ago. Now they're right on your bumper, New York. Yep. They are right on your bumper. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you something. That first wild card spot in the American League, a hell of a lot more valuable than that second wild card spot. And that second wild card spot has classic Yankee playoff loss written all over it. But everybody in New York is all concerned about, oh, well, Luis Garcia looks great. And hey, we called up George Lombard. And did you see? He homered in his first game. And so did his little brother who's in Double A. Yeah. Oh, and hey, also, Aaron Judge might actually be coming back. And we're all going to misconstrue all the quotes that everybody's saying and put out a bunch of misleading tweets. Let's take the quotes for what they are worth. Let's put the pieces of the puzzle together because a lot of things happened for the Yankees yesterday. Yesterday, late morning, you had Brian Cashman coming out and saying, yeah, we're not sure about Aaron. We need to see where all the scans are. We need to see how everything's going, yada, yada, yada. The scans came back. Cashman came out again before Judge spoke and said, listen, he's been cleared to begin light baseball activities. When he was asked to elaborate on what that means, it essentially means he's allowed to run. He can't throw a baseball. He can't swing a baseball bat. Folks, it is August 6th. The man has missed more than a month at this point of the Major League Baseball season. We have essentially a month and a half to go. You got 6, call it maybe 7 weeks left dealing with this kind of injury, with these kinds of questions, and then he comes out and has that whole quote after the GM said everything that he said. It's starting to become not. Listen, I will say this about the Yankees. As much as over the course of years, right, they have had horrible injuries to deal with, and they have had some signings that have turned into players who have been riddled by injuries, like the Giancarlo Stanton thing. Take your pick of the injury. The one thing about that organization is they were always in lockstep about what they were doing. They were in lockstep with the player. They were in lockstep between the coaches and upper management. And it feels like, and maybe this is just because it's their superstar, maybe it's just because it's the guy who they've paid the most money to in like franchise history or whatever. Or agreed to pay the most money to in franchise history. They're not handling this correctly because you've got the player saying one thing, the management saying another, and the manager, the coaching staff, just being completely quiet on the whole thing and saying, go ask Aaron, go ask Brian Cashman. So, the Yankees, it's very confusing what's going on with them. And I'll tell you, the Red Sox on a 7-game heater right now, again, pulling right up on that bumper.
And I will also say, because if the Yankees are 2 and the Red Sox are 1, they would be the wild card matchup, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And if that's the case, right? I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. If I'm not, somebody will correct me. If that's the case, there are very few instances where I think home field matters more than the Red Sox versus the Yankees with the Red Sox having home field advantage. That is a real home field advantage. The quotes from Judge, I'll be back this season. I don't know why I wouldn't be. That was always the plan to come back. Sooner than later, definitely, but I never had a thought of not playing this year. The light activity, as Sam mentioned, is running. It's also upper body resistance exercises. I don't know what that means.
That means
because I've never done any sort of exercise. That's what I thought.
That means he can stretch with a band.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I don't do any sort of exercising, so why would I know what that means? So that's where we are on Aaron Judge. He's been out since April 26th, by the way. So we'll see.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's been April 26th. So I said, when I said he's been gone a long time. And, you know, I, not that he needs a rehab assignment per se. You could have him work in the cage and do simulated stuff, but
I don't know. April 26th, you need a rehab assignment. You need to,
maybe.
Or you need to work off the field for a long time.
Couple of NFL notes to get to, and we'll do that when we come back. Wrap it up with some odds and ends 10 minutes from now. Messi is back! And he just picked up where he left off. Get to that coming up. Sam, that's what you were really watching last night, wasn't it? You were watching Messi. Inter Miami score a couple of goals. No?
I was watching Jason Page. The New Age Nationals put an extra innings beat down on the Philadelphia Phillies last night.
I was watching the Yankees, and then I was watching season 2 of The Pit. That's what I was watching.
I can't watch that show. Too gory.
I was gonna say you got a weak stomach. Too gory. You got a weak stomach. For people that don't know, if you ever want to send Sam anything on his X feed, just send him anything gross.
No.
Send him surgery videos, anything like that.
Great way to get blocked.
Yeah.
Great way to get blocked.
Send him all of that stuff because he is like gore fest, man. Shudder is his favorite channel. So Sam Yarnell, let's talk about the NFL. Aaron Donald working out for the Los Angeles Rams as the worst kept secret in football continues to play out. He's going to come back and play for the Rams this season. And, you know, the NFL is one of those leagues. I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to do the show today. It's one of those leagues that's set up to not have super teams. And this is the closest thing I can think of to a super team that we've seen in the NFL, if you really think about it. It feels like the closest thing. I mean, if you can give me something that feels like it was more of a super team, I'm all about it. But this feels like the closest thing we're going to see to an NFL super team.
Huh. That's an interesting proposition.
Right?
Because the nature of the NFL, like the nature of the NFL is almost immune to super teams. You have to have 22 starters at the minimum, right? The team that came to mind was like those 2020s Bucks, those early 2020s Bucks when Brady went there, brought Gronk with him. You had Mike Evans, you had Chris Godwin. But then again, on the defense, they had a couple of stalwarts, but like Sean Witherspoon, I want to say, was a stalwart of that defense. But man, like that is a very fascinating question that you postulate, because I'll say, and this kind of goes to the point about what the Rams have done this year with these teams, Jason. Like, not being able to think about it is frustrating me, because it does feel like we've had these teams in recent years past, and they're never able to get it done. Obviously, the Brady Bucks did get it done once, but my goodness, it does feel like every time that we come into a season talking about how, unavoidable this team is, they always seem to be the team that, lets us down at some point or another. I think our minds may be a little bit clouded because of the recent dominance of the Chiefs to an extent. But like, even if you look at last season and look at the Chiefs of last season as kind of a microcosm for what we're talking about with the Rams, right? Everyone had written the Super Bowl off to the Chiefs coming into last year. Even the season before, where they ended up losing the Super Bowl to the Eagles. But coming into this season, everybody had you had the Chiefs posted as Super Bowl favorites. Everyone was talking about they were 500 8 weeks into the season, and we were still talking about what kind of noise is this team going to make in the playoffs. So I think with the NFL, it's kind of in our nature to almost have there be an unavoidable team every year. But the reality of that, Jason, seems to be more and more frequently those unavoidable teams are the most avoidable ones.
The Washington Commanders, near and dear to your heart, even though you're a Bills fan, being from the DMV, go out and sounds like they're going to sign Stephon Diggs on a one-year deal worth up to $12 million. How do you feel about pairing him up with Jaden Daniels?
I'll tell you, I think it's a great signing. I think it's a good fit for Diggs, and I think it's a great fit for the Commanders. It is what the Commanders need, right? Especially with Debo going back to San Francisco. They need a veteran pass catcher to be alongside Terry McLaurin out there, and what they really need is a locker room presence, and that is what Stephon Diggs showed you that he can be, right? He showed you that he could be that in Buffalo, showed you he could be that in Houston, and he showed you he could be that in New England as well. He was a veteran presence for all three of those young quarterbacks at the time of his arrival there, Jason. I think this is going to be great for not only Stephon Diggs' career or the end of it, not only the Commanders franchise. This is going to be great for Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is going to develop a relationship with him that is going to be incredibly useful for him down the line and teach him a lot about who he is as a quarterback. Not to mention Diggs gets to play in his hometown. That's pretty cool as well.
You pointed, the last part is a part that I think is essential to this. He went to Maryland. I love guys on one-year deals, sort of prove-it deals in the latter stages of their career when they know there's not a lot of options left. I am a huge fan of deals like this, and I do think this is one that if on paper something was set up to succeed, it is Stephon Diggs going to the Commanders. News out of Indianapolis today where the Colts have signed a big extension for Jonathan Taylor, 2 years and $44 million, Sam Yarnell, as they try to run it back from last year, hopefully with a healthy Daniel Jones.
Yeah, we'll see if they can catch lightning in a bottle again. I'll tell you this, Jonathan Taylor earned his money, right? Bijan Robinson the other day earned his money, right? These are two of the premier backs in the NFL. However, my immediate thought when both of these deals kind of came across the wire, man, that call they had a couple of years ago where they were talking about how running backs need to get paid, that really must have worked because they're paying running backs willy-nilly. James Cook last season, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor just now. We're paying running backs, man. That's the spirit of the NFL.
I remember sitting in a studio, about 10 years ago over at NBC Sports Radio, doing overnights there Monday through Friday, and us all lamenting the fact that it was the end of running backs, that running backs were just being, outcasts, like the movie Robots. They were basically being turned into outcasts, and now you look, and they're all getting big deals. Sam, we will see you next week. We're coming back. Odds and Ends are next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday, and that usually means Robert Lital is here, founder of Black Sports Online. We have a NASCAR race to preview in Iowa. Brian Twining will be here to do that. We'll recap the NFL preseason opener, which, as it turns out, is not between the Cardinals and the Dolphins. It's the Panthers and the Dolphins, as Sam Yarnell reminded me earlier. Carson back, man. So be interesting to see what happens there and get our first look at Carson Beck in a Dolphins uniform in games that, well, I won't say actually matter, but they're games, right? Before we go, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. The audio version of this show available Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show in crystal clear audio, limited commercial interruptions, Monday through Friday. We encourage you to do so. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place to find all things video related to this show, the Monday through Friday TV version of the show. The Big Story, extended conversations, everything video related to this show goes on that YouTube channel. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap shorts are available there as well. If you haven't subscribed, go and do so. We also have the Sports Wrap website. SportsWrap.tv is the address. SportsWrap.tv is the address. This is everything I just mentioned. The podcast, the TV version of the show, extended clips, the Substack newsletter, the Daily Wrap. You could subscribe to that right on our website, sportswrap.tv. And again, it's free. Go and check it out. More and more people are doing that every day. We've also got a comment section. You want to reach out to the show, let us know what you think. You can go and do that at the bottom of the page over on the Sports Wrap website at sportswrap.tv. We've also got a place where you can find your affiliate. If you want to know where to watch the show Monday through Friday, you can do that at sportswrap.tv as well. And without any further delay on this Thursday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Lionel Messi is back and better than ever. Scores a couple of goals against Atletico de St. Louis as Miami beats Atletico de St. Louis in some sort of in-season tournament thing they do for MLS. I don't pretend to know. 2 goals, they beat them 4-2 as Messi coming back sort of from an injury break. Obviously a break from all the activity out at the World Cup. The guy's just ageless. There's no getting around it. I saw the highlights of the 2 goals. He just, I don't know how much longer he's going to play. Much like LeBron James, you just kind of have to enjoy it while it's there. But as long as he's out there, you certainly should enjoy it. Messi with 2 goals in that game. Dylan Brooks had a really nice season for the Phoenix Suns. Remember, the Phoenix Suns weren't projected to be anything this year. They made the playoffs. And Dylan Brooks was a big part of the reason why. His maturity and growth as a player, developing his game more. A lot of times with NBA players, we think the die is cast within the first 2 or 3 years. And many times it is. But in the case of a guy like Dylan Brooks, he just continues to incrementally get better. And last year was another example of that. When Phoenix made the playoffs, he was a big part of the reason why. So what does he get? A contract extension. Congratulations to Dylan Brooks. 3 years, $73 million. And look, now I'm going to take the other side of this. He's improved nice. Yeah, he's improved very nicely. Incrementally. But he's going to make almost $25 million a year. Man, it is good money if you can get it in the NBA, and he certainly will. Things going from bad to worse over at North Carolina for Bill Belichick's program. Remember a couple of weeks ago we had Mike Lombardi placed on leave by the school, some sort of HR issue. We still don't really know what it was. Kind of shocking that it hasn't leaked out yet in this day and age. So you've lost your GM if you are Bill Belichick. Your hand-picked GM, no less. Well, now the team's defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, is going on medical leave indefinitely, and Bill Belichick isn't indicating if and when he's coming back. I would imagine he will at some point, and they said they look forward to having him back. But in the meantime, now he's just lost his defensive coordinator. This thing is an absolute train wreck at North Carolina. And I don't want to say we told you so, but just about everybody told North Carolina when this whole thing happened, Bubba Cunningham, who's no longer there and has to deal with the aftermath of this, that it was going to be a train wreck, and it has. And, we had Bill Bender on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, he wondered aloud if Belichick would make it through the season. And I kind of thought it was almost implausible that he'd get fired mid-season. Maybe they find a way to part ways after the season is done. But man, the way this thing is starting, and we haven't even had a single snap in terms of a game on the field for this North Carolina team, wouldn't be all that shocking if this thing ended before the season does for Bill Belichick and company. And that's going to do it for us on this fantastic Thursday edition of the show. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to Sam Yarnell for hanging out with me. And again, all of you for watching. Again, check out sportswrap.tv for all the latest involving this show. We'll see you back here on Friday for another edition of Sports Wrap. Bye-bye.